Alrighty, hello everyone. Mark from Avalaunch here. Today we are joined by the Dragon Crypto team. We've been working with these guys for some time now, and it's a kind of an interesting story and trajectory for the project and the relationship, and we can get into some of that. But really happy to have you guys here. Really happy to talk about the game and the presence in Avalanche and the Avalanche IDO and what your guys' plans are. So thanks a lot for making the time.
Thanks for having us, Mark. Good to be here.
Thank you, Mark.
Right, right on. Before we get started and really get into it, I just want to kind of go around here, and Paul, we can start with you and talk about who you are, what you work on within the team, and we'll take it from there.
Of course, sounds good. Okay, so yeah, I'm Paul. You may be able to tell from my accent that I am Irish, so I apologize if you cannot understand everything I say. But I've been a software engineer now for just over 10 years. I've worked pretty much a full stack developer for the whole time. I've been a nerd and a game lover for a much, much longer time than 10 years, pretty much my entire life. Yeah, that's a little bit about my background. And yeah, so Sam originally approached us all about forming a game on the blockchain, and obviously it was about dragons. And my inner nerd came roaring out and said, "Yes, I am in. That sounds fantastic. I am definitely up for that." And since then, we've gone from very humble beginnings to where we are now, which is just about launch a game on a blockchain, the first big RPG game. As to what I do, so I do a little bit of everything. So I am a developer myself. I've done a little bit of work on the front end website for a little while, and now I am currently fixing bugs on the actual RPG game itself and making some other various improvements in the background. As well as that, I do a little bit of project management. So I make sure everything, well, I don't make sure everything is going according to schedule, but I sort of poke people. I tend to organize a lot of meetings, a lot of presentations. I do a lot of the talking and the front-facing aspect of it, the AMAs, the Twitter Spaces, etc., all that kind of thing. I also do a lot of the community management, so I think I'm a pretty familiar figure in the Discord and TG servers. And yeah, I just tend to coordinate some of the team members, and I tend to coordinate a lot with the partners as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So yeah, that's more.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Sam?
Thanks.
Hey, I'm Sam, obviously. So I've been pretty much the lead on the development side. A lot of the project code originally I sort of did as a bit of a passion project early on. I got things started up, and then sort of brought people on as I told them more and more about it. I've been, I guess, a hobbyist programmer ever since sort of I was quite young. I think I started my first text-based game when I was about 8 or so. So it's been a good 20-something years. I think like 28 years or something like that. So
Wow.
been a good while. But unfortunately, I had to join the regular world of work and not work on games. So sort of started as a software developer in my early 20s. I'm a head of technology for a software company at the moment, as well as working on Dragon Crypto Gaming.
Cool. And Heat Engine.
Hey guys, I'm Stefan. I'm basically community and marketing manager at Dragon Crypto Gaming, helping biz ops as well. We're a co-founder team. We're founders. We met a year ago. I think it would be a year ago, and everything started when we created a small community of yield farmers, and we learned about Sam's idea, and we really loved the vision he had. We wanted to be a part of something great. We wanted also to contribute to space because we saw a lot of flaws in the space. And yeah, basically something about me. I'm a graduate student of aerospace and doing research, but crypto is really my obsession, DeFi and GameFi, and I'm moving mostly toward like full time, being full time into this, and yeah, that's about me.
Cool. So, I mean, stuff on that. So, I'm curious now. Like, so what was vision that you got excited about initially? What was it like that pulled you in, and how did you say this is definitely what I want to be working on?
Well, when I started DeFi, it was like pretty simple. Yield farms, we already cracked how they work, and we could see the flaws like Pontonomics, and we could see that it's just repetitive scheme that people are just going to realize. But then when Sam presented his first little white paper of Dragon Crypto Gaming, I realized how much GameFi is different from just usual gaming and DeFi, which is you can own things. There are so many things you can improve in sense of the gaming side. You can own things that you cannot own in the real gaming world, and also really the imagination is your limit in this space. As for entertainment, as well as for for earning.
Okay. So let's just actually talk about the game a little bit, and come at it from like a kind of a high level. So, what is sort of the elevator pitch here? But I'm also kind of curious what inspired like you guys to build like this kind of game, and what about your past and background and games you like sort of drove you to build this kind of game.
Yeah, so
Yeah, sure. Sam, yep. I was just about to say, Sam, do you want to take this one? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no worries. So I've always been into making RPG games. I think pretty much all the games I've made have been RPGs of sorts. And I also worked on custom game servers for certain MMOs.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ultima Online was my first one. So you sort of create your own server with all your own rules and your own scripts and things like that. So I sort of worked on games in the background. Then eventually I sort of started getting into crypto. And, I think it was last year, sort of GameFi became the sort of hot thing. So I thought, I'll get into GameFi as well. And I started getting into it, and I was like, where's the game? kind of. I sort of started to realize that every game, as they called it on the chain, was basically staking an NFT for tokens, or sending your NFT somewhere to get some tokens back. And I sort of thought, well, that's not really a game. That's just staking with a game interface. So what I really wanted to do at the beginning was actually create something that provides sort of entertainment as well, because when all your product is doing is just basically printing tokens for someone, I don't see the long-term value in that. You need to have something else. And I think entertainment is, obviously a huge industry. And having something on the blockchain that provides entertainment is sort of was one of my main goals for this game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And why do you like RPG games? Why have you always built those? Like it seems like RPG style games are really prevalent in crypto. Like a lot of stuff
Yeah,
gravitates towards that direction. Now, what do you what do
yeah,
you what do you like about it?
yeah. I mean, the fantasy aspect, the whole medieval settings, always appealed to me. But I think with RPG games, it's not just necessarily about the game; it's about the story around it. It's sort of you can immerse yourself in a world, um, a completely made up world, and discover things, and sort of, yeah, that's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
most of it for me. Yeah. If anyone else wants to pitch in for that one too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, another aspect as well that you have to remember for RPGs is the gameplay itself. The game mechanics for RPG lend themselves to the blockchain. It's a lot more difficult to create an FPS on the blockchain because, well, you can't play an FPS with constant interruptions and transactions that need to be established. Whereas RPGs are perfect because you don't necessarily mind those stop and interact, because you're leveling up your character, you're selling NFTs on the marketplace, and so on. And the very nature of an RPG lends itself to the whole NFT idea, right? I mean, in a game, in an RPG game, you normally pay upfront money for a game and you play the game. You don't really own anything in that game. It's all just digital. It's in your computer, and then once you move computer, it's gone, right? At least with the blockchain, that's not the case. All of your stuff is now on the blockchain. Your NFTs are actually owned by you. Your items, your gear, your equipment. If you get some really cool armor in an RPG, it's like, oh yeah, great, I have some cool armor. Now I'll sell it for some fake gold or whatever it is. With the blockchain, you can actually now generate wealth from an RPG game that you will hopefully enjoy. So if I find some legendary or mythical armor set that all works together, I don't just have boasting rights. I now have actual money in my hands if I wish it for that for those items. So yeah, RPG really does lend itself to a blockchain. The nature of an RPG is pause, collect your thoughts. What do you want to do next?
Yeah.
Sort out your character, look at the market, equip yourself, and so on and so forth. Whereas other types of games just don't lend themselves to that kind of aspect.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
can play over and over again.
Exactly.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And so give us the pitch. Like, give us the Dragon Crypto kind of high level. What is it? What kind of game is it? For anyone that doesn't already know.
Of course, yeah. So I'll give you the elevator pitch as you requested. So basically, Dragon Crypto Gaming, we are a crypto-based gaming company. We're creating an evolving digital universe that combines an in-depth play and earn fantasy RPG with user ownership and sustainable economics. So the Legend of Oro Draconis game, which is our upcoming RPG, it's going to have a dual token economy using both DCAU and DCAR. Both tokens hold essential in-game utility. So the Legend of Orm Draconis is going to be the primary offering from Dragon Crypto Gaming. And in this immersive fantasy RPG, you will be able to train your party of heroes, gain experience to boost your stats via combat or crafting. You can be a warrior or a peaceful crafter if you wish, or a trader. And you can choose your favorite equipment combinations from a pretty vast range of powerful weapons, armor, and items. And by vast, I mean we have nearly 2,000 unique NFT pictures. And that's going to be combinable in millions of different ways. So dagger of speed, dagger of luck, so on and so forth. So yeah, and using this very large equipment combination, you need to defeat your hordes of enemies, which rise in difficulty as you proceed, like a standard RPG. But with that rise in difficulty comes increasingly valuable loot and token rewards as you work your way through the main quest to defeat the Golden Dragon, Aurum Draconis. So yeah, one to know about this is obviously Dragon Crypto Hero NFTs are needed to play the game. So they're the entry point. That's basically you going out and purchasing a game. And they are always going to be pegged to $100, which is something we always try to emphasize because, well, the state of the state of games at the moment on the blockchain tend to lend themselves to very expensive entry points. You're talking multiple thousands of dollars in a lot of cases of the more popular games, but we're always going to be $100 no matter what the price of the token is. So it's always going to be affordable and it's always going to be accessible to everybody. So yeah, that's pretty much the well, might be a long elevator ride, but I think it was a decent elevator pitch for the game itself.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Thanks for that. And with the static price of $100, it sounds like you guys have identified some things happening in across GameFi that maybe you feel aren't necessarily optimal for a game. Like, for example, the really high cost of entry for new players potentially, and I'm curious, just hearing that, if there's like any other observations you have around GameFi and games, and things that you wanted to make sure that you incorporated into this game based on things you like or didn't. And are there any other games that you guys are actually sort of excited about and doing things well?
I could take the first question. What we identified. I would just like to repeat what Sam mentioned, that not only games have high entry points, but also um, it's more, they're more of idle games, and there is not entertainment involved, and they don't have lore and story that we could offer. And also, we know a lot of people who are involved in these games, but they never play. They're earning through them, but they admit that they never actually play the game. They just press the buttons. Yeah. So
Hmm.
that's what we consider as a flaw and want to improve on our side. We can bring a complex game which can offer a sort of fantastic world you can immerse in.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly what Stefan just mentioned. I mean, and Sam mentioned earlier on, a lot of the so-called games out at the moment are just gamified yield farms, and we're looking to change that because us saying that we are nerds and we are gamers, it's not just a talking point. We are all nerds, we are all gamers, we love our games. I've wasted most of my childhood on games, in fact, as my mother would be all too glad to tell anybody who asks. So it's something that we've definitely identified as a sort of weak point in the market at the moment, and it's something we're hoping to fill because we actually bring a game that is now playable. You can actually go onto the blockchain right now. You can buy a Genesis Hero and you can actually play our game. It is there. It is playable. It's an actual game. So yeah, that's kind of one of the main points we've taken away from what we've looked into in other games, and we have looked into other games. We've wanted to play other games, but the entry point is just too expensive on a lot of them. So yeah, just
Hmm.
to elaborate a little bit more on that point.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
second part of the question, I'm not sure if Paul and Sam want to answer that as well, but um, most of the games I like so far are still in the stage of trailers and maybe alphas, but maybe not even alphas, and they're coming like 2023 and after. The games I would play from the graphics and mechanics I see.
Yeah.
But right now in Avalanche Eco, I cannot see the game that's something. Maybe I'm just biased, but that's more fun than Orum Draconis.
All right. Tell us about the game itself. Like, there's a couple of components, and I want to cover how a user is going to be onboarded into the game, the kind of game they're going to be playing. You know what the different components are, and how these things come together to create like the experience that you're talking about now.
Yeah, sure. Sam, unless you want to take this, I can go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm sure I can butt in if I need to.
Perfect. Okay, just wanted to check. I tend to have it's my Irish genes coming through. I tend to talk a lot, so I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so yeah. So the game is, as I mentioned earlier on, the entry point into the game is a hero NFT, which, as I said, is minted for $100, or you can buy it on the secondary market, which will be in game or on the standard trading like NF Trade, Calio, so on and so forth, Tofu, NFT, or whatever it's called. Yeah, so you can buy the hero on the secondary market. Once you come in, just note that's all you will ever have to pay to play the game. You will then be able to play this game forevermore in the future with no further expenses if you don't want to spend those expenses. So yeah, once you get into the game, you have a choice to make. You can either make your character a warrior, or you can make him a crafter. So you start off with a certain amount of stat points based on the rarity of your NFT. I believe it starts at 10 stat points for the neophyte, which is the lowest, and goes up to 30 stat points, I believe, for the legendary, which is the highest. You assign them as you see fit, like a standard RPG. You have your standard stats like strength, defense, attack, speed, luck, crafting, gathering, magic, sorry, so on and so forth, endurance, and all those kind of fun stuff. So what you can then do is you can go to the plains and start fighting monsters. So you can explore the plains, you find enemies to fight them. We've gone with a bit more of a humorous-based approach to this, and a crypto-themed approach. So you will be fighting, for example, Schiller the Evil or Footer the Devious, and as well as the standard orcs and goblins that you would expect in any RPG. So once you
Mhm.
defeat those enemies, you get loot. So this is the form of both tokens. So that will be DCAU or DCAR, mainly DCAR. So DCAU is like the gold. It's a rare drop, but you can get it. And also NFTs. So this comes in the form of equipment. So be it anything from potions and bandages to armor, weapons, staffs, etc., etc. As I mentioned, there's a vast array of equipment. So yeah, you equip your character, you gain experience, you level up, you gain more stat points, and you follow the standard flow of an RPG. You start fighting more powerful enemies, you move on to new areas to fight even more powerful enemies. The risk is much higher, but so is the reward. Or if that is not to your suiting, if you don't like the more barbaric warrior classes, you can of course just become a standard crafter. So crafting is obviously the second major aspect of the game, and you can level up your gathering and your luck and your crafting skill. Your gathering skill will help you explore the mines, find rich ore veins or more in-depth materials. It will help you mine those materials. You can also go to the forest to find wood, leather, silk, all that kind of stuff. You can then use those materials you collect to craft NFTs. So this is where the sort of more peaceful earning comes into play. So you can craft any NFT that you have the level for and the blueprint for. And once you craft that NFT, if you decide, you know what, I actually have some really good NFTs here, I have some good armor, I have some good weapons, let's try out the warrior approach, you can do so. Or you can use your character to earn a living by selling those NFTs on the open marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's pretty much the sort of bare intro for newcomers. That's how it works. Obviously, there's more mechanics in there, such as land management will be introduced hopefully at the third quarter this year. We have inns with mini that will contain mini games. We have forges to forge materials. Yeah, we have a few more aspects added, but that's the sort of bare minimum RPG intro to the game.
Mm-hmm. And how much time do you expect like any given player to be spending playing this a day? Is this something where you could literally sit in front of it for 8 hours and or is it come back, check in, come back, check in, that kind of thing? What's the actual play style like?
Yeah.
Of
So
course.
with it's kind of built in both ways. So if you're a casual gamer and you've got maybe 10 minutes a day,
Mm-hmm.
um, you can log in once a day, use up all your 10 turns, log off for the day. Tomorrow you'll have another 10 turns. Um, but if you're more of a hardcore gamer, you want to do a bit more. Once you've run out of turns, you can buy more of them with our tokens. Um, and part of that gets burned, and part of that goes back into the game economy. So it's sort of, all those people who are playing, extra hard are also sort of supporting the game as well by burning tokens and putting back into the economy. So it's kind of you decide really. If you want to do 10 minutes a day, you can. If you want to do it with all the time in the world, you can go
Wow.
crazy and play all your extra turns.
Got it. And I know the story and the lore component is really important to you guys. I mean, Sam, you alluded to it earlier, but this is something that I know you guys take very seriously. We've talked a little bit about it. And one of the things I'm always kind of fascinated by, especially with gaming teams of all scope and size, is the like creative writing process around these things and how big of a role it actually plays. So could
Yeah.
you help us understand how you go about like writing these stories and being sure that it's creating like a compelling experience and is exciting to people? Just give us some insight into that process because I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have someone dedicated on the team who pretty much just owns the story. They come up with the big picture kind of thing. Of course, we all probably annoyingly to them pitch in bits and pieces.
Yeah.
They probably have to rein us in a little bit sometimes, but really it's just having that one source of knowledge, that one sort of stream where it all comes out of, and then we sort of go from there. Really,
Mm-hmm.
I mean that is a really important thing to us as well.
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit on that, actually to show you how important this is, we've hired like the person, we have got a full-time professional writer on board writing this lore for us. At last count, I believe we have 42 pages of lore and quest lines to push the storyline. So it's
Wow.
definitely a very serious aspect to it. It's something we take very seriously because, well, lore really can make a game.
Mhm.
So yeah, just to say how much we have actually written there, it's quite an enormous amount.
And is this something that like reveals itself over time? And do you guys think about how you're going to approach that through the game and the community?
Yeah. So sort of everything we try to do for the game has a reason. I just think it's a better approach to do it that way because
Hmm.
you've got some automatic sort of marketing and a story
Yeah.
that reveals more to the user as you do it. Like for instance, our last NFT release had a story behind it as well. But yeah, I mean, to sort of learn about the story, you use quests in game, so you can sort of start to piece it together the more quests you do, and that'll reveal more and more of the story. And also, as we develop it, we'll use that lore to create more in the game from the story. So, for instance, new locations, new storylines to introduce, sort of like expansion packs, kind of thing.
Hmm. 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 And you earlier you mentioned like literally like thousands of items and NFT items that can be brought
Yeah,
together and sort of endless combinations to create something totally unique for every player. And how much do you expect that that element of like randomness and the possible combinations to play into like the community in the game? And what I mean by that is there going to be a culture in the community here where it's like it really is about just collecting as much as you can
yeah.
and crafting things because there are so many opportunities, and like how do you account for that like randomness or unknown in the gameplay and the like the game balancing, I guess would be the way to say it.
Yeah, yeah. So I think with any big NFT economy, you you kind of have to be careful with inflation of them. So just as a first point, so we
Hmm.
have sort of like durability on them. So certain items will break forever and never be able to be used again. So they'll be
Hmm.
taken out of the economy. Um, and also, as a crafter, you can fix items for people. So if people have really great items that they're their favorite set, they're going to have to, unless they create their own crafting character, of course, they're going to have to pay someone to fix it. Um, so it sort of creates a more of an economy just around loot and your items and your best sets. Um, and as a sort of Diablo player, it's sort of all about the loot at times for some
Hmm.
people. It's all about that collecting, all about finding the best thing, and there's probably always going to be something better. That's just harder and harder to find. So it's sort of going to drive players to keep on searching, to keep on trying to find that better item, that little tiny extra advantage any that they can. Um,
Hmm.
and there's also very rare, but there's also sets of equipment where if you have, a full set of that particular type of equipment, say, helmet of the dragon or something like that, if you get, leggings of the dragon, you get an extra bonus, and then if you get, chest plate of the dragon, you get a further extra bonus. So it's sort of there's a whole lot around collecting and making your perfect build with your perfect gear.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, very cool. And what have you guys seen in the deployed version of the game, the sort of like beta version? Like you guys released this, let people play it, let people interact with it, and I wonder like what lessons you sort of took away from that. Like how did it improve the game that's available today, and then that will like sort of be continued to iterate upon? What is putting it out kind of early afford you?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it's the usability part of it, which is extremely important because you want people to be able to use your product and be able to use it in a way that
Mhm.
makes sense to them. And when it's just a team of developers working on a game, you think it's this is obvious, or
Yeah.
this is how things should work. And then people run through it and say, I have no idea what to do, or I have no idea how to do this, or this is really unclear. It sort of gives you a really good window and a really good view to improve that usability part.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think that's probably our biggest takeaway is just usability and sort of user interaction, how they interact with it. And as we go further into it, we're also going to start doing some modeling based on sort of the data, how many fights people are doing per day, per average, to refine the tokenomics a little bit.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that was going to be my next question: is whether or not you guys had learned anything about the economy or the tokenomics from
Mm.
having it live and people interacting with it. Like, is there anything that like surprised you guys?
Mm. Yeah, I think at the stage we're at, it's sort of, I guess it's early days in that aspect of it. I think
Uh-huh.
it's mostly the user experience that we've been working on. So it's sort of just beginning to get into that tokenomics part and that, yeah. Um,
And
yep.
also, user behavior is very different since DCAU they're using now is not real token, so it doesn't have real value. It's on the on Fuji testnet, so I guess that will be much different when it goes live on the mainnet.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, without real money on the line, it's tricky.
Yeah,
You don't really
absolutely.
know how people actually behave, and I've seen some like interesting sort of thinking about that from other games and projects that are coming, and it's I think we'll continue to see some interesting ways to approach that in the future. Um, and what about just the competition of this space in general, not just Avalanche, but GameFi in general? There's a lot of games, a lot of on the surface, these things can appear similar, similar genres, similar types of communities, and it really takes a player going in there and being a part of it and putting money on the line to learn in a real way why any given game is different. And I'm wondering if you guys can talk about how you plan on standing out and offering a better experience to gamers in such a saturated space.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of comes back to what we said earlier on, in the sense that we stand out by offering an actual game. I mean, I know that sounds a bit harsh, but and it is kind of said a little bit in jest. But
Yeah.
we do actually have a game that's playable. It's an RPG game. You can actually come in and play it. It will be releasing to the to the live chain of Avalanche in within the next few weeks, after the IDO with Avalanche, for example, and the price discovery process afterwards. So that's first off a major point of sort of standing out compared to the competition is the fact that we have an actual game. We also have a standard yield farm attached to that, or should I say profit sharing. So it's definitely something that is quite enticing, the profit sharing mechanism itself, which is basically where if you stake your token, you actually share in a percentage of all transactions that happen on our ecosystem. So those 2 points alone make us stand out quite a lot. The third point is some of the features we have in development. We're not going to mention them just yet. We want to hold them close to our chest until they're close to being released. But we do have some unique mechanics coming out that have not been done in any game so far. We know they haven't because we've been looking into it and trying to find some of this information, and they just don't exist. And finally, it's not necessarily a competition. I mean, people who play RPGs tend to play more than one RPG. They may have a favorite, but they do tend to play more than one.
Yeah.
I'm using myself as an example. You have World of Warcraft, sort of the base game, right? Lots of people play that, but a lot of people that play that will also play Diablo. They will also play Aeon. They will play Blade and Soul. They will play the numerous other RPGs that are out there. There's a reason there's so many RPGs out there is because they share the audience. There is obviously a little bit of competition. There's only so many people to go around, but at the same time, just because you have the same genre doesn't necessarily mean you are in competition. We actually just had an AMA yesterday or the day before. Sorry, it's late over here. I'm losing track of the time. Yesterday, the day before, we had an AMA with a game that is very, very similar to us. It's a medieval setting. It's a medieval setting gameplay, NFTs that you buy to play the game, so on and so forth. But instead of making it a competition, we decided to come together. Now they're on a different chain, but it's still a game that's very similar to ours. But there's plenty of sort of knowledge to share, and I think the audience and the end users will be benefited from this cooperation rather than cutthroat competition. So I do look forward to the future. It does seem that gamified projects are starting to come a little bit closer together.
Yeah.
We're starting to cooperate a little bit more rather than compete. And I think that can only benefit the end user. So I think all of the points I made to allow us to stand out, alongside the fact that we're actually cooperating with a lot of other games that are similar to us, really helps get our name out there, build partnerships for the future, and make a standout game, basically.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, I really hope and anticipate the GameFi space to mature a lot, and leave more room for the things that you're talking about now. And I do think we see some of that already. Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool. Well, let's talk about the tokens itself, because there's some interesting things happening here, some things to talk about, and I think kind of clarify. And so there are two tokens currently associated with the Dragon Crypto ecosystem, and that's DCAU and DCAR. One of these is currently trading. The other is the one that's actually being offered in the IDO. And I want to understand the difference between these two. Why someone would be interested in holding one or the other or both, and what like the strategy was about releasing the first one and then holding off on the second one, and how all these things benefit the game and the ecosystem. There's a lot in there, and I want to make sure we get into all of it.
Of course, yeah. So, guys, feel free to jump over if you feel I'm talking too much. But yeah, so as you said, DCAU and DCAR, so they stand for gold and silver, respectively. AU is aurum, Latin for gold, and AOR is argenti, also Latin for silver. So they're the two tokens we have. DCAU was our first offering, and the reason we sent that out to the community, we did not give any of that to the team. We didn't get any VCs involved. We kind of just added liquidity, and away you go. Was as a community building exercise. We wanted to build trust with the community. We wanted to get the token out there so that everybody could see that we're here, we're serious, and we're staying around. I mean, we literally just allowed people to farm the entirety of DCAU and gain pretty much no benefit from it, just to build a community and show that we're here to stay. It's a passion project. We're not going anywhere. As for what the two tokens are, so DCAU is the entry point into the system. So if you own DCAU, it's used to mint all NFTs to enter the system to play the game. So that's the hero NFTs. It's also used for trading of not only equipment, but also characters on the secondary marketplace. So what I mean by that is all weapons and armor will be bought and sold for in DCAU. So will the characters on so will the hero NFTs on the secondary marketplace. That will be using DCAU. As well as that, certain in-game actions such as the healing or resting at the end require DCAU. DCAR, on the other hand, or R, sorry, I've been recently told I pronounce my R's wrong, so I hope you all understand what I say. So DCAR is our crafting token. So what that means is everything related to crafting requires DCAR, whether that's repairing broken equipment, crafting new equipment, forging the materials used to build this equipment, or even just trading in the materials on the marketplace itself, be they raw materials or refined materials, such as raw iron or iron ingots, for example. all of that requires DCAR. So if you want to be a crafting character at all, you're going to need DCAR. As well as that, DCAR is going to be the primary mechanic, the primary token in use for upcoming land management system. So that includes not just buying the land, but also decorating the land, either
Mhm.
aesthetically pleasing or more sort of a production-based land management. So, for example, if you want to build a marketplace, which will entitle you to a certain percentage of all marketplace transactions throughout the game, you will require DCAR to do that, as well as certain building materials, for example. And that's just the short-term utility for both DCAU and DCAR. As time goes on, we will be adding more utility for both those tokens with new mechanics and new features we'll be introducing later on this year and next year.
Mhm. Got it. Now, with two tokens and segmenting the utility across these, this strikes me as a tricky problem. And balancing that thing and making sure that these tokens are doing the right things in the right place to come together to create like a good economy seems like a really, really hard thing to achieve. And I wanna ask you guys if like what were the kind of things that you were thinking about in terms of balancing these things appropriately, and what were the considerations when you were saying like this utility's here and this utility's over here.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it was, as you said, a tough kind of problem to work on because yeah, dual tokens they tend to dilute the market cap of each other because you either want DCAU or DCR for specific tasks. The first off, we wanted it for lore reasons alone. You never play an RPG with just gold. There's always gold and silver, right? There's always a dual token there. So for sort of immersive reasons, you need two tokens. It just makes more sense. Secondly, how we decide what is used for what. So basically, as I said, DCAU is kind of the entry to the game, and it's kind of more based around combat. So DCAU is kind of responsible for not only the entry but everything related to combat, in the sense that if you want to buy equipment or weapons, you need DCAU. If you want to rest to go or heal to continue fighting, you need DCAU. Whereas DCR is more the crafting token. So everything related to crafting and building falls into the DCAR camp, whether that's trading materials, as I mentioned, or actually crafting or repairing items. That's where DCR fits in. That's kind of where we're pegging it at the moment. We'll most likely continue to do so. Obviously, that may change a little bit as we add more utility and more functions to the game. We might have to get a little bit more creative with which one we use. For example, subnets doesn't quite fall into the crafting category of a game, but that will mostly use DCR because it's our current token. There's more of it and it's being emitted, so it makes more sense. The breeding of tiny dragons will also be DCAR. However, the entry point, so again, the breeding of dragons can be sort of the equivalent of crafting, right? You're making new NFTs, whereas the entry into the the tiny dragon battle system requires DCAU. So you can see how it's sort of utility is kind of focused more on combat v crafting kind of utility.
Mhm.
So and we'll most likely keep doing that in the future.
And tell us
Hope
about
that answers your question. Oh, sorry.
it did, and it opened up another one that I wanted to cover, which is tiny dragons, and tell us about that and what that is and how that plays into the game itself.
Of course. So Tiny Dragons was basically our entry point into the gaming ecosystem of Avalanche. It's actually a game we released. Oh, I want to say 6 months ago now. I think it was
Uh-huh.
6 months ago. Yeah, it feels like a decade in crypto time, which is why it's difficult to remember the exact date. But it's been out a little while now. We have nearly 1,000 matches played throughout that. So what Tiny Dragons are is basically a set of 1,000 NFTs called Tiny Dragons. And what you can do with them is they provide actual utility at the moment, in the sense that not only do they gain levels, while you can level up their attack and defense, but you can also fight them against each other in tourneys. So basically, several dragons will enter into a tournament. The size is variable, and they will fight for the prize. Basically, so it's an actual game that is there. It's a very casual base game, though. We wanted this to be the sort of casual counterpoint to the Legend of Orm Draconis. So yeah, that's basically Tiny Dragons, and it will be very much integrated into the upcoming RPG game. Not only in the sense that if you own a Tiny Dragon, it will give you sort of like a power move, a bonus attack, so to speak, in combat, but we will be introducing much more for the Tiny Dragons, including, for example, an in-world location in the Legend of Rome Draconis. You can actually go visit the Tiny Dragon Arena and participate in it that way. We also have a lot more plans, a lot more integration plans for the Legend of Rome Draconis, including, for example, sending your tiny dragons off on adventures to come back with DNA, which you could then use in the laboratory/laboratory, however you want to pronounce it, to extract attributes from tiny dragons and use those attributes to breed other tiny dragons. So yeah, we have lots of plans for tiny dragons in the future, and a lot of integration with the Legend of Rome Draconis.
Mm-hmm. In that game, so that game's like about 6 months old now, and you all have been a part of the Avalanche community, the gaming community, the broader community for a long time now. Just here building, and I want to talk about that a little bit, and want to cover why you guys landed here and why you chose to be here and build here and what that's been like for you all.
Yeah, so I guess I can start on that one.
Sure.
So I think we came pretty early onto Avalaunch. I sort of was just trying it out because it was a fairly new chain at the time, and there were quite a few opportunities for me as an investor, obviously. And I sort of had plans for other chains which shall not be mentioned right now. But as I started to use Avalanche a lot more, sort of became sort of where I liked to do things, really. Just because, I wasn't having issues with an RPC. I wasn't getting failed transactions. I didn't have to sit there and fiddle with gas and still failed transactions. It just sort of worked. And then it just made sense for me, really, to, go somewhere where I knew things just worked for me, and it would be really the easiest way forward for me.
Yeah, and when was that?
Oh God, maybe 8 months ago or so, I think. 9 months, something like that. It was, yeah. I think there was only one yield farm on there at the time or something like that when I first joined.
Yeah. It was probably not terribly long before we first met and spoke, which was at some point last year when we first met you guys. It's been you guys have I think grown a lot since then and matured a lot as like an effort and a team. That's for sure. It's been really pretty impressive to watch you guys advance, and it's been awesome. So really happy to be able to continue to support you guys, particularly through the IDO, and you're definitely the kind of team that we like to collaborate with and try and help in whatever ways we can. And yeah, it's been great. And the Avalanche ecosystem, I think anyone that's involved in it will tell you it's pretty unique, and it feels good to be a part of and build in and work with other teams. And I've definitely lost perspective around like what it's like in other ecosystems just because I spend no time there. But I think, that suggests something that I don't really have reason to go elsewhere. So it's it's been cool to watch you guys kind of get it done around here. And are you guys looking at a subnet at some point in the future? Or where are you in that conversation? A lot of games looking at it, launching with it, building with it. Where do you guys land there?
Yeah, so I think at the moment it's purely a focus thing. Like we want to just focus on getting this game perfected, getting the main release out there, and then focusing on that next stage, which is looking at subnets as well. Just because, if we were to do it right now, I think we'd be trying to sort of put our eggs in too many baskets and try to spread ourselves too thin. So
yeah, for sure.
On the cards, because it's a great use for your native token as well. Have for DCAR, it's automatic sort of more burning of it, more utility to it.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, sort of, it's the second stage, and we're still at the first kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about the roadmap for you guys. We have the IDO coming up here shortly, and what does as best you can tell, the next couple months look like, and 6 months and beyond. What do you guys what do you guys know? What are you aiming at?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Next couple of months. So the next month really is going to be crucial. That's obviously focusing on the IDO, the launch itself, making sure there's no critical bugs, making sure everything's fixed and ready to play and good to go. So that's obviously the purpose of the beta and the next few weeks before the next couple of weeks before we release for trading and then release the game itself. So that's just making sure everything is in order and everything works as it should.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we're done with that, we're going to be working onto a more engaging gameplay. So what I mean by that is we are currently a text-based combat system and mining system. We're going to be dramatically improving that and bringing in 2D battles. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Heroes of Might and Magic, for example, but the battle system will be something similar to that. Not quite a copy, obviously. We'll have our own unique way spin on it. But if you want to look up Heroes of Might and Magic on YouTube, you'll see exactly what the gameplay is we're going to go for.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of short-term plans after we release. Mid-term, we'll be introducing land management systems, as I previously mentioned. So you can buy and own land on the world map. You can build buildings on it. You can either build aesthetically pleasing buildings and statues and so on and so forth to show off, or you can build more production-based buildings. So you can build a sawmill to get you lumber. You can build a farm to get you leather or silk. You can build a marketplace to share in all marketplace fees, a forge to share in all forge fees throughout the game, etc., etc. There's going to be many different buildings, obviously. Then shortly after that, we'll be focusing on a much more expanded quest system. Not only main quest lines, but a lot more sub quests and side quests. In conjunction with that, we'll be developing a guild system, at least the initial version of a guild system, which will be something like Oblivion or Skyrim if you've ever played it. You have to go on a quest and you can join a guild, and the guild will give you certain benefits and extra abilities or whatever it may be at the time. After that, we will obviously focus on expanding the guild system itself, even eventually running to player-built empires that can conquer land, and we'll see where it goes there. Obviously, that's not necessarily written in stone, but we're definitely going to be expanding on that. And we do have other plans that, as I mentioned earlier on, we're going to keep close to our chest because they're not ready for release yet or discussion. But there's one in particular that has me most excited. I know that much, so I am looking forward to being able to talk about that. So yeah, that's kind of our short, mid, long-term plans. Well, not necessarily long-term because some of them are close to our chest. We can't quite reveal it, but there are plans anyway for the future.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Sounds very cool, guys. Well, I think we've covered a lot here. Unless there's anything else you guys want to make sure that you mention or touch on, I think we could probably wrap it up.
Yeah, I guess I just need to point out. So I did mention obviously that the end point by minting a hero is pegged to DCAU, but something to also point out is all of our actions are going to be pegged to stable coins. So it doesn't matter what the action is in game; it's never going to become unaffordable. It's always
Mhm.
going to be affordable price. So regardless of what happens to the token price, if it spikes, if it goes 100x, 1000x, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter because you can still enter the game. You can still play the game. It's not going to price you out. It's something very important that we want to get across. And
Mhm.
it's also, I just want to point out the tokenomics, just a little bit more about the tokenomics in the sense that the mechanism we've put in place for the tokenomics really helps ensure our longevity. So if the price does go down for whatever reason, for example, we're currently in a bit of a low at the moment. The entire market, that is, not DCAU itself, but the entire market is in a bit of a downtrend at the moment. So air mechanics basically ensure that the lower the price, the more tokens are burned and the more tokens are put into the in-game treasury via the in-game mechanics. That means that more tokens are taken out of the market, which improves the price action of the remaining tokens, and the more tokens that get put into the treasury, which means we have longer rewards and more rewards for a longer time. As well as that, if the price does go up and it does spike, we actually ensure stability because we burn less tokens. So the current amount of tokens on the market stay roughly the same. They will only slowly decrease, which basically means it encourages stability of the actual token itself, which makes it a nice hold.
Got it. Yeah, very cool. Thanks for that. All right, guys. Well, I really do appreciate your time here today in speaking with us, and letting the community know more about the game. And like I said before, it's been a pleasure working with you guys through the launch, and getting to understand the vision and the project, and how we, as Avalaunch, can support it. We're really excited to be able to support you through the platform. And yeah, super excited for like what's in store for you guys. We think you're a tremendous team, and really excited to watch you guys just continue to grow and flourish. So thanks for your trust here. We're excited to be able to work with you all. And yeah, once the game launches officially and it's out for a little while, we'll certainly come back on and do this again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. And just before we break, I do just want to say thanks to you and your team. You've been great while we've been working with you. A lot of our early tokenomics actually were influenced by discussions with yourself and your team. So yeah, it's been a very beneficial partnership. We've enjoyed talking to you guys. We've enjoyed working with you guys, and we really enjoyed growing with you guys. So yeah, just want to extend the thanks from the Dragon Crypto team to the Avalanche team. So thanks for everything you've done, and we appreciate all the help.
Right on.
Yeah, I appreciate all the help, Mark, and I just want to mention that what I love about Avalanche is that like the first day we met, you came to us and just wanted to meet us and see what we were doing. That's how like that's the culture you guys are building, and you are Avalanche. It's not just a network itself, but it's people. And I just want to thank you for even early support and approaching us that way. Thank you.
Yeah, right on, guys. It's a real pleasure, honestly. It's what it's all about. I do remember that. I remember that first call we had many moons ago now, and you guys have come along. And it's
We,
exactly.
we we tried to convince everyone that we were serious, but no one would listen back then, which is obvious.
And look at you now. Yeah, yeah, very cool, guys. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. That means a lot to us. And yeah, again, thanks for your time, and we'll catch up soon.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks, Mark. Have a
All
great
right,
day, everyone. Take care.
take
Have a
care.
great day. Bye bye.
Bye
See
bye.
you.